Indiana had 9 road games moved to larger arenas last year, but just 4 so far for 2026. WNBA teams are moving more games to different arenas this upcoming season, but Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever have significantly fewer of those games. The WNBA's regular season schedule announced Wednesday, including 19 games moved to different arenas, up from 15 last year.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are witnessing a heavyweight championship fight between the league office and the undeniable reality of the box office numbers. You look at the tail of the tape and see that Indiana had 9 massive road games moved to arenas last year, but we are staring at just 4 for 2026. This is not a random glitch in the system or a referee error, because we are talking about a deliberate reduction in the biggest main events on the schedule. The powers that be are trying to tell us this is business as usual, but when you cut the biggest draw in the sport from 9 main cards down to 4, you are absolutely trying to control the narrative. This is a strategic strike that changes the entire landscape of the upcoming season and leaves fans wondering if the promoters even want to make money.
Last season, the Washington Mystics, Connecticut Sun, and Atlanta Dream each moved 1 game against Indiana last year, but none for the upcoming season. The New York Liberty, Portland Fire, Mercury, Valkyries, and Minnesota Lynx are already in NBA arenas, removing any need to move games for bigger crowds. Is part of this due to injuries? Well, they would like you to believe that, I think. They would like you to believe, oh, well, she got injured last year. We don't want to commit to a bigger arena. God forbid she gets injured again.
We have to be crystal clear right off the bat that this scheduling decision is absolutely not some random accident or a computer error in the matchmaking department. Last season, the Indiana Fever saw a staggering 9 of their road bouts moved into massive NBA arenas, specifically to accommodate the absolute tsunami of crowds that Caitlin Clark brought to the arena. It was a phenomenon we had never seen before in the history of this combat sport, and the energy was absolutely electric from the opening bell to the final buzzer. Now, we are seeing a massive pullback that defies all logical financial sense, and you have to wonder what is happening behind the scenes in the war room.
You have names like Renee Montgomery, part owner of the Atlanta Dream. Names like Sheila Johnson, part owner of the Washington Mystics. Sheila Johnson, the same person who threw a fit that Caitlin Clark was named Time Magazine's Woman Athlete of the Year. And she said, why give it to Caitlin Clark? Let's give it to the whole entire league. If you ask me, this is a subtle play from folks like Sheila Johnson and Renee Montgomery. Because at the end of the season, they decreased the amount of Fever games that have been moved to bigger arenas. Yet in totality, they increased the league from 15 games to 19 games.
You have to look at the players involved in this decision, because we are talking about influential figures like Renee Montgomery, who is part owner of the Atlanta Dream. We are looking at titans of industry like Sheila Johnson, who is the powerful part owner of the Washington Mystics and has been vocal about spreading the love. Sheila Johnson is the same person who threw a massive fit when Caitlin Clark was named Time Magazine Athlete of the Year because she wanted the whole league to get the belt. If you ask me, this is a subtle submission attempt from folks like Sheila Johnson and Renee Montgomery to force the spotlight off one superstar and onto the rest of the roster.
In big arenas 4 times this season. You see how massive the season was? You see how much of a success it was this year? And we only had Caitlin Clark. See, we don't really need her. I told you guys we were going to do this without her. Interesting. The decrease in moved Fever games comes after Caitlin Clark played in just 13 games last season. Clark appeared in just 3 of the 9 moved road games, including July 15th against the Connecticut Sun at TD Garden. Clark injured her groin in the 4th quarter of that game and missed the remainder of the season. The Fever remained the league's biggest attendance draw last year, averaging 15,884 fans for their road game.
The league office and the team owners want you to believe this is primarily about injury risk management and protecting the fighters from the grind. They point to the fact that Caitlin Clark missed most of last season after that nasty groin injury she suffered at the TD Garden on July 15th.
They are using that injury as the justification to keep these games in smaller venues and claim they're being super cautious about committing to larger stages. That sounds reasonable on paper until you actually look at the data and see that the fans showed up regardless of who was standing in the octagon.
Spokesperson tells Front Office Sports. But teams could still change course before the WNBA regular season starts. I think that is likely. It's easier to say, oh, we're gonna show everybody that we know this league is good with or without Caitlin Clark. We're gonna prove it. But once you talk to your owner buddies and they say, look how much we made. I mean, Indiana Fever came to town. Look how much we're making, right? Once Renee Montgomery and Sheila Johnson talk to the owner of the Las Vegas Aces, talk to the owner of the Chicago Sky, and they say, hey, what was that gate looking like? Oh, damn, that's a lot of money.
Even after Caitlin Clark announced she was not returning to the court, those moved games did not just sell well, they completely sold out in big arenas 4 times. You have to understand how massive the season was, because the Fever remained the biggest attendance draw in the league, averaging over 15,000 fans for their road games. That number is honestly mind-blowing when you break it down, because it was a full 4,000 more fans per game than any other team in the league. The demand was for the team and the event itself, not just the player, and the fans proved they are hungry for the action.
During the 2025 season against the Fever. The 2025 schedule was released 2 months earlier. The Dream announced in March that their game on May 22nd against Indiana would be moved to the State Farm home arena, home of the NBA's Hawks. The Wings announced a week later that they moved a game against the Fever to American Airlines Arena. A Dream spokesperson tells Front Office Sports that they are always exploring new opportunities. The 2026 WNBA season remains in jeopardy of not starting on time, as the league and its union have yet to come to terms on a new collective bargaining agreement.
We are looking at a situation where the Chicago Sky and the Dallas Wings each had 2 games moved to bigger arenas last season to host the Fever, but now they have cut that in half. Each of those teams has exactly 1 game scheduled for a larger venue this year, and that feels like a deliberate financial handicap. You have owners like the Las Vegas Aces and the Chicago Sky looking at those gate receipts from last year and realizing they are leaving a fortune on the table. When you can move a fight from a 7,000-seat gym to a 20,000-seat NBA arena, you are talking about transformative money that these franchises desperately need.
That there's no CBA deal reached. If I'm an owner of an NBA arena, if I'm in charge of selecting what events gets put in these arenas, well, without a CBA deal reached, why would I want to start already Xing out dates with potential WNBA games when I can keep those dates open for when a Jonas Brothers come to town, when a Taylor Swift comes to town, when a Luke Bryan or whoever come to town? Why would I start Xing out these dates? I wouldn't. It's not smart. I want to keep those dates open as long as I possibly can.
This feels like a deliberate statement during the 25 season against the Fever, because the Dream moved 1 game against Indiana to State Farm Arena last year to capitalize on the hype. But this year, the count is absolutely 0. It is the same story with the Mystics, who moved 1 game last season to a bigger venue, but have decided to keep everything in their smaller home arena this year. Sheila Johnson and the decision-makers in Washington are making a calculated bet that they do not need the Caitlin Clark stimulus package to fill their seats. It is a pride thing, and it is absolutely about legacy, because they do not want the league's growth story to be reduced to one fighter's impact.
Keep those dates open for possible bigger events. And if nobody takes those dates, fine. Then we'll slide a couple Indiana Fever games in here. But until then, we're keeping these dates open. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I appreciate all the support. Like the video, let me know your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel, that would mean so much to me. See you next time, and as always, take it easy.
The math tells you everything you need to know about the league's mindset right now, because the total number of moved games actually went up from 15 to 19 across the board.
Yet we see fever games in those big arenas dropped from 9 down to just 4, and you do not need a degree in statistics to see the anomaly there. They are increasing the stage for everyone else while strategically limiting the exposure of their biggest star, and that is a gamble of epic proportions. It is a strategic pivot away from relying on the fever to carry the league's attendance numbers, regardless of the millions of dollars it leaves on the table. There is a massive factor nobody is really talking about yet, and that is the collective bargaining agreement, which still has not been finalized. The 26th season is genuinely in jeopardy of not starting on time or potentially facing a lockout, and that casts a huge shadow over every single business decision. If you were managing an NBA arena, why would you block out lucrative dates for WNBA games when the league might not even be playing? It makes zero business sense to lock those dates in when you could be hosting a Jonas Brothers concert or a Taylor Swift tour that guarantees a sellout without the labor uncertainty. The league is pointing to Toronto's expansion team, which has a whopping 5 games moved to different venues, including massive fights in Montreal and Vancouver. This proves the league is absolutely willing to move games to capture bigger crowds and open up new markets when it fits their specific narrative. They are just strategically limiting how many of those big stage games feature the Indiana Fever specifically, because they want to prove the brand is strong on its own. They are using the expansion excitement as a shield to deflect from the fact that they are actively suppressing the Caitlin Clark effect in the scheduling room. Take a close look at the 4 games they actually did schedule, because they are all pushed deep into the season, well after the initial media frenzy dies down. We have dates on July 5th and well into August, which is a complete contrast to last year when they loaded the front of the schedule with big arena games. This year, they are making a gamble that they can build early season buzz without using Caitlin Clark as the crutch and then deploy those big games later. It is a risky strategy that assumes the casual fan will stick around through the slow months without the marquee matchups to keep them hooked. The owners are caught in a massive tension between the narrative they want to push publicly and the financial reality they have to face privately. On one hand, you have Renee Montgomery and Sheila Johnson preaching collective growth, and on the other hand, you have the cold hard cash from gate receipts. When you move a game to a big arena and sell it out completely, that is not a marginal difference in cash flow. It is life-changing revenue for these teams. They are testing whether the WNBA can sustain record attendance without leaning heavily on the Caitlin Clark effect, and if the test fails, they have built in an escape hatch. We are going to see if this strategy holds up, because a spokesperson told reporters that teams could still change course before the regular season starts. I think that is highly likely, because once the owners start looking at the projected revenue, they are going to realize the mistake they made. Once Renee Montgomery and Sheila Johnson talk to the other owners and see the potential losses, they might suddenly discover that their smaller arenas are just too small. You can expect a scramble in late winter to move more games once the financial pressure starts to outweigh the pride in the narrative. The league's strategy is another huge piece of this puzzle, because the league claimed record viewership for year 2, even with Caitlin Clark missing most of the action. But if you look closer at the numbers, the Fever games still dominated the top viewership slots, even when she was sitting on the bench. This season, with fewer Fever games in prime time, we are going to get a much clearer picture of what the baseline audience actually looks like. The league is about to find out the hard way if people are tuning in for the sport or if they are tuning in for the superstar. Ultimately, this is a high-stakes game of poker between the league's ego and its bank account, and we are all waiting to see who blinks first. They are betting that the growth of the sport was inevitable and that Caitlin Clark just happened to arrive at the right moment, but that is a dangerous assumption to make with millions on the line. If attendance dips and revenue suffers, you can bet your bottom dollar we will see a rapid shift in strategy and a flood of new arena announcements. Keep your eyes on the newswire, because this fight is far from over, and the final round is going to be decided by the fans in the stands.